Well, hello. Now, let's get right into the topic. Uh, I'm currently writing a book, and I've just started writing that book. It's about authenticity and self. Now, you might ask, why is this such a vague topic for writing a book? I mean, it's not a vague topic, actually. It's actually really necessary. If you think, now, first of all, the main, if you ask me, if anybody asks me, what is that one question you believe that haunts you the most? I'm going to say that the question is about what is authentic, what does the word authentic mean, and also what is self, and a combination of two. That means, what does it mean to be authentic? And if we come to a conclusion that no one is authentic, like you, me, the people watching this video, you guys are not authentic. What you call yourself is just made up of your surroundings, your genes, which are passed down from your parents, and also the things you consume on your daily basis. So, what does that tell about you? That you are not actually you. You are just fragments of other people's personalities. And let me remind you, the people I'm talking about, their personalities also borrowed fragment by fragment, fragment by fragment from every source they can get. And therefore, if this is actually the case, we need to go back, one generation back, again. And when we go, like, the cycle continues on and on. It's a very big cycle. But, like the contingency argument, we have to come to a point. Where does this cycle stop? This cycle should stop to a being which is necessary for existence of other personalities of people that we are going to have in the future and in the current and in the past too. This we should call the necessary being, as in the contingency argument, and this necessary being should be authentic. His personality or her personality, or okay, let's suit okay, his personality or her personality should be the authentic personality, and from their personalities all the personalities have branched out, isn't it? So that is a great thought experiment, but I don't know if that's actually the case. It is not possible that from one authentic necessary being every personality type has developed. It's not exactly. It is due to the human evolution. So let's get into the topic. So the first chapter of my book is called The Resistance of Self for Being Defined. Now, before jumping into the point of authenticity and getting all complicated, let's just first start by defining what does self even mean. Now, self. For this book, like for writing this book, I've researched and read a lot of philosophers, I might say, in which uh, I've read the most is David Hume, and I have read the whole of the Human Treatise of Nature, so I can come to this conclusion. Now, what I'm saying in this book is, um, the most common belief of people and philosophies. Now, why I'm saying people and philosophies is because I'm going to name them after that. Okay. Now, most common belief of them is that the self is the most epistemically primary and metaphysically fundamental thing, which is quite plausible to think at once, but it's not. Many philosophers, now I'm going to start to name them, many philosophers like Rene Descartes, John Locke, Immanuel Kant, and philosophies like Advaita Vedanta claim that the self is an unquestionable basis for reality. This misconception is believed on such a large scale by philosophers not because it is clearly defined, but because it appears impossible to doubt. Now, we have just concluded that self is not a simple thing to define, and therefore we can't easily come to a conclusion on what is self, and therefore we can't know what is authenticity and what is the authentic being. Now, problems with defining the self are, first of all, there are only two sensible options that might come while defining the self. First is the substantial definition of the self, and second is the experiential definition of self. Now, first start with the substantial definition of self. The substantial definition of self is that the self is a thing that exists in itself and remains the same over time. Now, what does this mean? But the key idea of substantial definition of the self is that the experiences change but the self stays. This definition is widely accepted by philosophers because it explains personal identity and it also explains moral responsibility. But the main problem is that you never experience these substances. Or what you experience is your thoughts, feelings, sensations, but never the thing having them. Experiential definition of the self tells that the self is nothing more than what is experienced. This view explains that consciousness is like a stream and the self is made up of bundles of perceptions. Now, what do I mean by perceptions in this sense? Let's talk about perceptions. In simple language, it means that there is no self experience but only the experience itself. The reason some philosophers prefer this view is because it avoids metaphysical speculations and it fits empirical observation. The main flaw of this view is that it's unable to explain continuity of over time, ownership, responsibility, and unity of thought. Now, but in both the views, the self lacks clear criteria for identity. Now, let's look at David Hume's perspective on this. Now, David Hume provides the most rigorous negative account of the self through a metaphorical theater thought experiment, which accounts to what he shows what self is not. He doesn't solve identity, nor does he explain normativity or meaning. In Hume's imaginary metaphorical theatre, there are constituent independent elements which we call as perceptions. Perceptions include sensations, emotions, thoughts, and memories. Later, thinkers like Carl Jung approached the problem not by defining the self as an object, but by treating it as a process of integration between the consciousness and the unconscious contents of the mind. Thus, the self appears neither as a stable substance nor as a mere stream of experience, but as a problem that resists both reduction and affirmation. Any attempt to define it prematurely risks mistaking an abstraction of reality. So, this is how much I've written about self, and I've tried to conclude what is my perspective, what is David Hume's, what is Carl Sagan's, and many philosophers and philosophies' perspective on the self. And if you ask me, what do you think, what is more plausible or probable, the experiential definition of the self or the substantial definition? Now, we can't consider substantial definition of a self. There is no one single self or one single mind that controls everything. I do agree with what his name is, David Hume, in this context, because I do believe the self is nothing but streams of experiences or perceptions. When you think about something, now I'm thinking about speaking what I'm speaking right now. So the streams of thought and what I had memorized earlier, they ran into my mind and that created my temporary self that I am with right now. This self is not permanent. This self might discontinue later, like a little bit of time later. But this is what I mean by self. Now, I have introduced a diagram of Carl Sagan about the self, in which there is, in the middle, there is the self. At the upper part, there is, in the bigger circle, there is the persona, and in its smaller circle, there is the ego. Then the lower part of the circle, there is the shadow, and then there is the anima and animus. What is anima and animus? Anima and animus are the feminine qualities of a man and the masculine qualities of a woman. That's anima and animus. It's present in both of the genders. Now, and at the side there is the consciousness, and rest of its outer world that interacts with the self and the mind. So I hope you understand what the self means, and if I continue to write the book, I will also talk about authenticity, which is an extraordinarily interesting topic, I believe, and I think you would like it too. So I think, guys, that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it a lot, and because I enjoy these topics a lot, and thank you.